The Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series has been enjoying something of a renaissance recently, thanks in no small part to the excellent Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake that was released in September 2020. Now, many believe that the series peaked at Pro Skater 3 way back in 2001, before beginning its slow descent towards the series nadir in 2015 with Pro Skater 5, which, despite the name, was in fact the 10th mainline Tony Hawk's title, and was so bad it forced an entire development studio to close. But I remember having a great time with Pro Skater 4, the Undergrounds, and this game, Tony Hawk's Project 8, all those years ago. Although, apparently not enough of a good time to get to number 1 in the Project 8 rankings. Now, as it was released in 2006, Project 8 awkwardly straddles a console generational divide, just like its predecessor from the previous year, American Wasteland, and strangely, even its successor the following year, Proving Ground. And to be honest, it was this yearly release schedule on as many platforms as possible that led to a degree of audience apathy towards this once revered series. The coup de grace was delivered in 2007 by EA's Skate series, a less arcadey, fisheye shaped difference maker that satisfied both Pro Skater fans and those in the skating community. But when the base game you're iterating upon is an absolute classic, then even the yearly updates must be good, right? Well, Project 8 doesn't exactly make a good first impression with its stark reminder that console games were starting to make use of install times, on this occasion resulting in a lengthy, unskippable intro video. Now, this wouldn't be so bad if said video was live action footage of the pro skateboarders featured in the game, you know, like in pretty much every other Tony Hawk's title, but instead we're treated to a video rendered by the in-game engine. And that's not the only change from the old Pro Skater games. Rather than self-contained levels featuring multiple goals and strict time limits, Project 8 opts for an open world like American Wasteland did a year prior, with goals and challenges doled out by the town's various colourful characters, like the guy from My Name is Earl, Filmer Guy, Photo Girl, and my favourite, Soul Patch Man. While you don't really play as the pro skaters like you did in the early games, they turn up throughout the story to set pro challenges, tasks that, upon completion, unlock their respective pros' footage. Although Rodney Mullen is the first pro you meet, so kind of like starting the show with a showstopper. But regardless, it's a great way to reward story progression that's a lot better than having to collect every single stat point like you do in the recent remake. As far as the actual skating goes, Project 8's main addition is Nail the Trick, a mechanic that slows down time and enables you to use both analog sticks to control your skater's feet individually in order to create tricks that are probably impossible. I mean, tricks that are actually possible rather than the trick that is actually called an impossible. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, Nail the Trick can be accessed by jumping on specific ramps or by clicking in both thumbsticks anywhere in the game's open world. And it's a pretty cool open world. Granted, it's not exactly an Elder Scrolls map in terms of size, but the way the different areas are connected is neat, and the fact that pretty much everywhere can be traversed without having to get off your board, even if there are a few liberties taken with the physics, is testament to a decent world design. Even the most intelligent map would be utterly useless if there were nothing to do in it, and fortunately Project 8 has plenty to keep you occupied, most notably its spot challenges. These challenges, which are littered around the environment, involve you completing all manner of tasks from manuals to grinds to stalls and natter spins, only you're not told where to go or how to go about them. Your only clues are the graffitied instructions in colours corresponding to the 3 levels of difficulty, Am, Pro and Sick. In fact, most non-story goals, spot or otherwise, have these 3 levels, and obtaining the Sick rating is almost always a challenge, which is great for Pro Skater veterans who don't want to play for hours and hours before finally unlocking something worth their time. Pro Skater veterans will also enjoy the 8 classic goals dotted around the map, given out to you by various NPCs, including one whose voice actor's audition probably went something like, "Oh hi, have you played Ratchet & Clank before?" No we haven't." "Excellent, I've got the perfect voice, let's go."
Hey, listen, I'm not telling you to trash this place just so I have a good news story. Wait a minute. Yes, I am. Have at it, kiddo. You go make Papa proud.
So with tons of content, new features and several nods to the classics, then surely Project 8 comes wholeheartedly recommended. Well, not really. The game is unfortunately plagued by a host of technical issues, most stemming from an unstable frame rate, on the 360 at least. It has a habit of briefly slowing to a crawl whenever you enter a new area, so given that Project 8 doesn't have any fast travelling between goals, you're gonna be seeing a lot of slowdown. Maybe it was forgivable back in 2006? You just need to look at the Metacritic score that's 1 point away from some beautiful symmetry. But these days it's quite hard to get past. Neither installing to the hard drive nor downloading the patch helps, In fact, if anything, it makes things worse, limiting the game to 30 frames per second while retaining the slowdown. If you don't care about these things, then the other much more minor downsides include the return of the series' tired humour and a pretty bare-bones creator skater. Now these things can of course be easily overlooked, which makes the technical difficulties even more frustrating. If you can look beyond these, the challenge that would rank up alongside some of the series' hardest, then Tony Hawk's Project 8 is a content-filled, challenging title that pushes the series in interesting directions, especially now it can be enjoyed outside of the yearly grind. It's not playable on current consoles, and I imagine music and image licensing issues prevent any Tony Hawk's game from ever being put on the 360 backwards compatibility list, and I don't recommend digging an old system out just to play it. But Tony Hawk's Project 8 remains an interesting look at what the series developed into after its heyday, but before it got truly abysmal. If you're coming to it from the technically near perfect remakes, however, this may be the one time where it's better to bail.